Hello, everyone. I'm Karen Stanley, your host of the Envision, Accelerate, and Excel podcast. We are in season 3, and our focus this season has been on honoring those whose shoulders we stand on and looking at the vision of some of our forefathers and learning more about how they brought that vision to reality, some of the challenges they had to overcome, and then, of course, how their vision came to reality in terms of excellence, sustainability, longevity, and the like. And today I'm so pleased to have as my guest the Reverend Charles Edgar, whom I first met as the father of my first grade classmate, Katie Edgar. And Charles Edgar was one of the early members of the Presbyterian church that started a school that I went to. And it has blossomed so much from that time. It was Presbyterian Day School into the amazing school that it is today on 2 campuses in the Huntsville and Madison County area, the Harvest campus and the Huntsville campus on Old Monrovia Road, and it is now known as Westminster Christian Academy. So Mr. Edgar is going to help us walk through the story of how WCA came to be, the early board members, faculty members, and administrators, the early kids who were in the classes there, and I'm sure it didn't start out K to 12. It probably started with first grade, then you added second, third, fourth, and tell us all about that background. And what's key, I think, for my listeners, we like to illuminate the backstory. People see, they say, you know my glory, but you don't know my story. People don't always know the backstory, and so it becomes difficult to understand really the resilience and the challenges that people have to overcome to get to where they are today. And not only people, but of course, organizations. And today we're really focused on Westminster Christian Academy, which of course, like any other organization, is made up of people and families like the Edgars or like the Stanleys. Our families are intertwined intergenerationally, and it really all started with Presbyterian Day School. So, Mr. Edgar, I want to just ask you, how did Presbyterian Day School come to be?
There was a pastor of this little church. It was called Bible Presbyterian Church at that time. We moved here in 1962 and joined the church shortly thereafter, I think during the summer. That's my recollection. It's a long time ago. Mm-hmm. In the spring of 1963, the church had a weekend program to introduce Christian education. It was called Christian Home and School. And the idea behind that title was that they should be integrated in Christian teaching. My wife, first, I was married to Virginia Edgar there. She was the first teacher at the school, and she later died in a car accident on the way home from an educational committee meeting, helping to get school started.
Well, that was just a sacrifice, and I'm so sorry about that. It was just amazing, though, that the Lord let you find another love, which is the Mrs. Edgar that I know.
Right. We moved here. She had been a teacher.
I see.
She taught kindergarten in California. We moved here. We had no experience whatsoever with Christian education, didn't know anything about it. We went to this weekend meeting. It was a Friday night, and I think it met to mid-afternoon on Saturday. By Saturday afternoon, we were absolutely convinced that our children needed to be educated in Christian education.
Wow.
This was 1963, and I forget the exact year, but it was not much more than about 5 years before that the Supreme Court had passed the law that you couldn't have Christian teaching in public schools. no more Bible reading. They used to have sort of that introduction.
Separation of church and state.
That's correct.
But also to put it into the historical context of what was happening in Alabama in the early 60s. Now, if you just got here in 62, you missed out on the part with the Birmingham bombing and, the integration of the Huntsville city schools, but that was right around that time as well.
It was right at that time. I mean, I remember those things really well. We really didn't want to be accused of starting a segregation academy. And the other interesting thing is when we did start, a lot of the people who came because of the Supreme Court ruling. We really believed that they were right. If we moved somewhere where, say, Dearborn, where the Muslims were in charge and they wanted to have our children pray, we wouldn't want that, and it wasn't fair for us to make them do it. So we agreed with that. But
as far as public education. But you
education.
also wanted the right to have your own children learn
Christian
about their
education.
own faith.
And we came to the point that Christians need to educate their children in Christian education. And that was the backbone of it. But neither one of us, Virginia Edgar or myself, had any background. But by the time that meeting was over, we were convinced we had to do it.
Now, how many families would have been represented there, and how did you know you could have a critical mass to get started? Because, you can't start with, I suppose you do start with one or two, and then it grows and attracts.
Well, as we look back today, and I've told any number of people, we were crazy. The church probably didn't have 75 members.
Oh.
They had some older men who were the original elders of the church, but almost all of the church was probably under 30.
Oh, great childbearing age. Great.
Boeing was, at that moment, Boeing was moving 5,000 people into this little town that it wasn't even 50,000 by then.
Yes. It was really the cotton gin town that was going to become the space city that we know today. So you came here to work for Boeing?
No, I came here as an insurance adjuster.
Oh.
I worked for State Farm.
Okay, but you had the Navy background, so I was thinking you would be in the military-industrial complex.
No, I had nothing. Never had anything to do with that.
Okay, all right. See,
I did become. Later on, I became a private investigator, and first of all, had an independent adjusting agency, and then we sold that and moved. And I became a private investigator, so I was bivocational. I had real estate interests, and I got ordained in 1975. I was not ordained when we started.
When you started the school. Now tell me, there's another person that I'm very familiar with, and I don't know if he was the pastor at that time or on the rise to pastor or called later. Reverend Paul Alexander, what was his role in this starting?
Paul came to Huntsville 5 years before we did, or 4 years. He came in 1958. He told me later it was a mission church. It was small. They had tried to begin, and it was not going anywhere. They said, go down there, see what you can do. Well, he moved here from St. Louis.
Well, see, that's part of the story of Huntsville is the growth, the companies that have moved to Huntsville made Huntsville the melting pot, and I want to say that probably the least likely city in Alabama, or the most unlike other cities in Alabama, because there were so many implants thanks to the Boeing, the NASA, the DOD, and just all other services that came with that.
Paul had the vision to start the church, and it's built up, as you mentioned, it's now called Westminster Presbyterian. It's probably, I would assume, about 700 members.
Wonderful.
The church is thriving.
Yes.
At the end of last year, they had a new member class of 73 people.
Oh, my.
At the beginning of this year, they had a class, and it only had 26 new members. And then they started another one that just finished at 62 members.
That is beautiful. I mean, that speaks to the growth. To me, that speaks to the fact that a vision became a shared vision. Maybe it was Reverend Alexander's dream and his vision, but he was so on fire about it that he could attract other people to him, and teachers and elders of the church and families and members. That carries on. Now we're probably 2-3 generations down the line from the 60s, because we're in 2025. And the current leadership, would we say, of Westminster Church is also very intertwined with the leadership of the school. And the question I want to ask is, with the vision of the church and then the vision of Christian education, how did those become intertwined and lead to the growth of both institutions? Because the school is thriving and the church is thriving.
It is. It's just amazing to me to drive in and see the football stadium.
Yes.
Think what we went through at the beginning.
Yes.
We started out, my concrete memory, we had no money at all to start the school.
Wow.
We couldn't even advertise.
What?
So we went around, the people interested, and handed out door knockers.
Wow.
To announce the school. And I have this memory of being in subdivisions, and it was snowing a little bit and handing out those door knockers.
Okay, so now some people would call that guerrilla marketing, because you didn't say anything about print advertising, you didn't say radio, you didn't say TV. It was just like hand to hand. Yeah, couldn't afford it. It was almost word of mouth, but you did have a leaflet that you were passing out. And what was it that you thought would attract people? What was the headline on the door knocker?
Well, just to have Christian education.
Okay.
The theme of the meeting was Deuteronomy chapter 6. And in that opening verses, it says, in effect, that teach your children in the scriptures as they lie down, as they rise up, as they walk by the way. Christian education, and I still believe it's the best way to accomplish that principle that's laid down. So that was our motive to do it.
That was the motive.
But
did you go to churches, though? So you went to, because I might think, yes, that's good in a neighborhood, but you're going to find the Christians in the churches.
Well, we didn't. That was mainly the way we did it.
Interesting.
We had contacts in other churches that were interested in what we were doing. But primarily, that was the way we got started. And as you said, our plan, we started with the kindergarten, and we were going to add a grade each year until we got to high school. And they followed that. But when, I think it was about 1978, we got to the 8th grade, and there were families there that said, we just really need to start a high school, just go. And so we started, and the first high school graduating class had 4. High school, I believe, was
1978. How big do you think the senior classes are these days?
It was probably bigger, close. It was probably close to 100.
Can you talk a little bit about doing this with no big money, no big endowment, and what were the facilities, the building? I guess the classrooms were Sunday school rooms at the church?
The church was a small building. Last night I estimated, I'm sure it was somewhere around 3,000 square feet, and probably not any bigger than 3,500.
Wow.
It had a very small, it was designed for a beginning church, and it had a small apartment and then a small sanctuary attached to that.
Wow.
But by the time we started, the Alexanders had moved out of the apartment, and that was used as classroom space. We were jammed in to everything.
Wow.
Space was until we made the move in 1980 to Evangel. Prior to that was Evangel School, another Christian school. we bought that, and until then, space was just, we had people almost in broom closets.
But guess what? I don't even remember that. I don't remember feeling crowded. I just remember pleasant classrooms. My favorite teacher of all was still the first grade teacher, Miss Dye. I know you remember Miss Dye. Our room was not crowded, and we just had all sorts of educational things and toys. And then you moved to the second grade, and then it was Miss Dixie Davenport, but now Mrs. Hammond. We moved to the third grade. It was Ms. Worsing. So the point is, you've got this growth. That's a factor. In a vision, you have to be prepared for growth. because you don't want a vision and then be static. Now, I don't know if there was a business plan or something that said, okay, in 5 years we're going to have 50 students, in 10 years we're going to have 100. Did you have any metrics that you were trying to meet?
Just add a grade every year.
Add a grade every year.
That was about it.
That was part of the advantage, personal attention.
That was a big factor.
Very big factor.
Getting off the ground was just something else. We intended to start the school in the beginning of August, September of 1963. We hired a teacher, and in August, her husband got transferred, so we didn't have a teacher.
Oh, my goodness.
Now, we had a division in the little church. There were some people who were opposed to doing it. So we then decided to wait until January of 64 to start the school. So we hired another teacher, and we're preparing for January. And about November, her husband got transferred.
Oh, my goodness. Now, see, this is a key success factor, which is about resilience. And even if your first milestone isn't met, you go for the second milestone. And then even that milestone wasn't met. So somebody must have felt, but this is our destiny. This is God's purpose for us. Because why would you just continue to say, okay, this is a sign. We don't have a teacher 2 semesters in a row.
That was a problem. We had a congregational meeting in the church that really got upset. There was a division. My wife, Virginia, as I said, had been an educator, but we had a baby that was born in 61, so she was just 2 years old.
That was Beth.
Katie had been born in July, and by December, she was pregnant with Chip, who was to come the next August.
You guys were so busy.
But she said, if we don't start now, we're never going to get started.
Oh.
So she said, I'm going to teach from January to May to get it started. And if we don't, we were really afraid of that's a sign or something like that.
Yeah, and the people who were against it. So you did take a stand. Your wife in particular took a stand. I don't know if anybody else in the church was qualified to be the teacher, but that was huge.
Oh, it was a big stand.
What were you thinking as a husband? Like, what are my babies going to do?
Well, that didn't bother me.
It didn't?
No, I was in agreement with her, but it presented problems.
A challenge. Okay, so let's talk about overcoming challenges. What's your personal philosophy on overcoming challenges? How did you see, I guess then, Presbyterian Day School overcoming its challenges? Number one, the ram in the bush. Your wife wasn't expecting to be the teacher. She was expecting to have children. So the ram in the bush, that's one way of overcoming obstacles. But what other things really helped you just get off the ground?
Well, it was just that we just needed to do it.
So like Nike, just do it. Put the one foot in front of the other.
That's probably as good of illustration as you can.
Yeah.
We just kept going. And then when we did add a building, do you remember that we called it the K3 building?
Yes, I was probably in it. But is that the one that the roof blew off? Let's talk about that obstacle. Over time, even physical challenges.
We had that first little, I would estimate 3,000 square foot building. Then we called it the K3 building. It had I think 5 classrooms and a lounge or something. It was quality. It was probably more than we needed. So we added that, and then we came to the place. We had a master plan that for another building just like it. Well, in about 74, I think it was, we decided to go ahead with the next building. Well, it was really a Cadillac building.
Okay, so we've got a commitment to excellence. I want to just stop right there because you have a vision for growth, and even though you started under duress, we could say, you still had a commitment to excellence, which means that you had to almost bite off more than you could chew every time.
Every time.
Every time. Where was this money coming from?
Well, catch.
Yes.
We had all sorts of financial problems.
Oh, goodness. But I seem to remember like spaghetti dinners. I mean, there was just, everybody was doing what they could, right?
We had
constant
when
fundraisers.
We got off the ground, there were so many people that contributed to the growth. It was absolutely amazing.
Well, see, that was confirmation right there, kind of miraculous. You make one step. There's one old song, that church song says, you take one step and he'll take two. So you make that first step on faith, and then God will send you what you need to do the rest.
We were so pressed for space. I was out because I was out in the field as an adjuster. I saw I ran into a building, just a little storage building, and I could pick it up for a couple $100. And so we moved it up there and painted it red and called it the Little Red Schoolhouse.
Oh, my.
And
My.
Put an air conditioner and heat it.
Oh, my goodness. You had a portable before portables were in style. Wow.
So we tried to build the second building, but the price came in so high that we couldn't do it. And I asked the contractor that we were working with, I said, have you ever, we were squeezed out in the church facility. And I thought, well, we could build a church building and then use the old sanctuary for classrooms. So do you have a plan that we could build whatever the dollar, I can't remember the dollar amount that we had budgeted. And he did. So we built that church building and used the former sanctuary for space.
Interesting.
Space.
So now that begs the question of governance. So you definitely had to have the agreement. Was there a separate board of the church and board of the school?
Yeah, we wanted to have the school. The original idea was that it was going to be parent controlled.
Oh, I love that.
We would have the school, the parents would elect the board of the school. The church would have oversight and had the ability to step in. But that was our concept. Unfortunately, the parents never really got into it. They really, too often, they just said, we want to pay our tuition.
Yeah. Now, I don't think Thornton Stanley was like that because he was on the board and he wanted to help. And let's talk a little bit about what my dad did for Westminster Christian Academy.
Thornton was beautiful.
Thank you.
I've told you one time, I said, my biggest memory of, as I would ride around town, I'd see Thornton here and there, and it seemed like he was always half running.
He was moving fast. He had a lot on his mind and a lot on his plate, and he seemed to get most of it done that I knew of.
And our little acreage on University Drive had a little space that was just about the space of an athletic field.
Okay.
And we didn't have football, we had soccer. And we wanted to have a soccer field. But the previous owner, somebody had come in and scraped all the topsoil off. So we were at a board meeting one night, and Thornton Stanley said, we were talking about it. Thornton said, I will give you a list if you will get these seeds and this, whatever he needed. He said, I'll bring the equipment and the manpower, and we can make grass grow.
All right, for the soccer field.
And he did that. And he told us he'd provide the labor. He said, we'll have to plow the field. And he said, it'll have clods. He said, so we'll have to have 20 guys come up there one Saturday and rake the clods.
That was something for everybody to do.
Yeah, so I remember being up there raking clods and breaking a sweat.
I hear you. See, people don't all know what is behind the building of anything, any institution. That's amazing. I'm sure the kids were just happy to have a soccer field, but they had no idea the sweat and the sweat equity that it would take to get that.
And then you mentioned that all over the South there were segregation schools. We really did not want to be called a segregation school. Mm-hmm. As a matter of fact, in order to make sure that the public knew about it, at one point, after we started the school, we would have summer Bible school. We found out that our kids knew so much in the Bible that curriculum wasn't anything. It was a piece of cake. Mm-hmm. So we decided we wanted to do outreach. And we did have, there was, in the congregation, there were people who were segregation, confessed that. And we wanted to overcome that. So we decided, to be fair about it, we would draw a circle around the University Drive property. That circle, however, incorporated North Woods. And back in
it sure was.
In the early days of public housing, it was segregated. Lincoln was white and North Woods was
That's
black.
right. That's right.
So we announced that plan, and interestingly enough, the city liked the idea. The city, if you know the history of the integration.
But tell the listeners, go ahead.
The city jumped on it and sent buses to Northwood and bused children up. We expected to have 75 to 100 students and ended up over 200.
Oh, my God. So it was the free summer camp. Yeah. Oh, my gosh. For Northwoods housing. Oh, my goodness.
When they landed in those buses, it was sort of like the Marines that took
Oh, my goodness. I'm sure. Yeah. Oh, wow. So you know what? That's another key success factor, though, being able to handle abundance when it comes your way. At first, here you are, no money, no people, and now here you are with twice as many, and especially Black kids than you ever expected. And so now I have to ask in an honest way, what did that mean for the people in the room, the kids and the adults? It's probably more integrated than you ever thought you would be.
Yeah, well, we loved it. I tell a story, and my son, who is the bishop in the Anglican Church, has used this illustration. But your family, I believe, was the first Black family. Mm-hmm. And we had one fellow on the board he's probably 6'3", big Dutch guy. And he was real solemn. And he said, we believe that all children need Christian education. And we are to educate all children. And if we need to accept them. And I said, well, what if we do? And then people leave and we can't keep the school folds. And he said, we would then believe that the Lord did not intend for us to have a school.
Wow.
And that we depend on him. Mm-hmm. And
that's a faith statement right there.
And that hit my son was not even in the school then.
Right. Too little.
Mm-hmm. But he knew the story, and he is now he is 60, and is a bishop, and he used that in his application.
Interesting.
We will do what is right.
Yes. And the Lord will provide the rest. That's something. Now, of course, you also had, I'm not sure how big that radius was, but from University Drive, as you go west to Jordan Lane and just a little bit north and Oakwood, you had a very interesting segregated integrated neighborhood. You had Rutledge Heights, which was primarily white, and we know the Alexanders lived there. And then you had Lydia Drive, which is where the Stanleys lived, in a very special street that was really the result of a lot of urban renewal when blacks were moved away from Church Street and Holmes Street to make way for the Parkway. And they were given money, some say, not the full market value or whatever. But many of them settled on Lydia Drive, which is how we got to be there, because my dad was a contractor and he was building houses for many of the other people on Lydia Drive. But the point is that Rutledge Heights was a large white neighborhood, and in the shadow was this one black street. And we weren't really living on the same street, and we didn't really have any friends in Rutledge Heights except for the Alexanders. And that's who we carpooled to school. So that would be interesting to look at that radius around the University Drive campus, because as you go to the east was Northwoods Project. But as you went to the west, you'd run into Lydia Drive, which is where a lot of Alabama A&M graduates were raising their families. So that's two polar opposites. And we know that there are economic strata within all of the races. So let's imagine, I think it would have been 1970 or 1971 then when I came to Westminster. What was the composition at that time, or you think that was the first black family?
I think y'all were pretty close to being the first. I may be wrong.
I don't remember any black children in my first grade class. And then, of course, then when I went to second grade, Deirdre would have come in first grade.
But we were always open, and we've always had we've always had the percentage of black students was the percentage of the city. We've always had that.
And now, of course, with the advent of sports and scholarships, there are plenty of scholarship students, I think, who come for athletics, and then just scholarships who come maybe financially need or the like. But let's go to this third question that I usually ask my guests. Remember, the podcast is Envision, Accelerate. Accelerate is the strategy, and that's what we've been talking about, the strategy, overcoming obstacles, having faith, trying again, even if you meet barriers. And then we talk about the commitment to excellence. You mentioned that just a little bit when you said it was a Cadillac school, or we had a blueprint and we had an idea. What was the commitment to excellence? How do you infuse that in a large group of people? Because not everybody has the same goals, as you do. So were there people who said, well, let's just get a little metal building and put a tin roof on it when you come out here with your Cadillac plan of a school? How did you handle that?
Well, I think it was a matter of people that wanted excellence in there. They wanted their children to have good education plus good Christian training. We had you may remember a license tag that had 3 little spaces: church, home, and school.
Yes.
Should work together. And that would be the symbol of excellence for Westminster.
That's I like to talk about the key success factors. So that is something that, entrepreneurs face, is raising capital. And, the Bible tells us you have not because you ask not. So you just have to keep asking, and you're not going to get a yes on every single phone call. That is for sure. So that is a super key success factor. But if we were to kind of fast forward to 1980, new building at Evangel, and let's just fast forward now to the building at Old Monrovia. You want to talk about that growth, because really there were 2 kind of inflection points and major trajectory increases in the life of Presbyterian Day School, the University Drive property, the Evangel property, and then the Old Monrovia.
Yeah, we looked at several properties, and one day they said, this is available at a very reasonable price. It was not free, but it was a beautiful place. And the location, I mean, it's a God gift.
It is.
It is in the heart of where everything's happening.
Yes, near Providence.
It's on 255.
Rideout Road, yes. The shadow of Oakwood, another Christian Seventh-day Adventist school, university.
And we had the opportunity to buy another piece of land. We bought that and put the lower classes out there.
And harvest. Let's talk about this. riding the wave and that the rising tide lifts all boats, because Huntsville just continued to grow, not just Boeing, NASA, DOD, and all of that. So you have, again, the opportunity just to work with people of like minds, build on that shared vision, expand and grow, and then commitment to excellence as we close. Clearly, there's a commitment all over the lower campus, the upper campus, the church itself. There's more money to be raised because there's more children to be educated, more families to love and to bring together. And that really is my whole remembrance of WCA, such a loving environment and loving families. And I want to thank you, the Edgars, for the friends that you've been to the Stanleys over all these years. I date myself if I go on and say, 60, almost 60 years, something like that. But I want to thank you, Reverend Edgar, for talking with us today about the vision of WCA and how that was able to be brought to life and brought to excellence. I know we have to say through the grace of God. So with that, we'll close and say thank God for God's amazing grace in WCA and all the families it has touched.
Thank you.
Thank you. And so, everyone, this is Karen Stanley signing off on your podcast, Envision, Accelerate, Excel.